Democracy faces a real threat in the public's exhaustion with the simple political process.
Information overload and the challenge of discerning facts is sadly a new norm.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, Mark Willie, and I too would like to welcome you to today's program. We're so very glad you've joined us. I know you've looked forward to this particular occasion, as you always have if you've been viewers for a long time. And if you're new to the program, I think you're going to really enjoy the format and the presentation and the panelists we've assembled here around this table. Now, speaking of the panelists, I'd like for you to meet them. At this time, I'm going to ask that they introduce themselves, say who they are, and tell a little bit about what they do. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
Thank you. My name is John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest in the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, D.C.
Hi, I'm Tony Mathews, and I'm the senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
And I'm Tom Plumbley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I serve as senior minister at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
I'm Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, and we are affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
My name is Mel Robeck. I'm senior professor of church history and ecumenics and special assistant to the president for ecumenical relations at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. I am also an Assemblies of God minister.
I'm Rabbi Dan Levin. I serve Temple Bethel as senior rabbi in Boca Raton, Florida.
Well, thank you everyone for being here today. As you can see, we have a great panel assembled here, and so glad they could take time from their busy schedules to be here. We're going to get right into our subject. In late 2019, the New York Times reported on research that found a great many Americans were numb to political news and felt it was difficult to determine what was true and what was not. And according to the research, it seems that many people are either exhausted, disgusted, confused, or bewildered, and sometimes all of the above. The Times said, quote, "Many people are numb and disoriented, struggling to discern what is real in a sea of slant, fake, and fact." Close quote. The American system of government is based upon an informed public, but recent research is finding almost half of us find it difficult to determine the truth of the information received, and well more than half of us say we are regularly receiving conflicting information about the same set of facts depending upon the source. Add to that the specter of malicious foreign influence in both the election process and in the information people receive, and we appear to be developing a dangerous environment for decision-making by everyday citizens. Do we have now a real existential threat to democracy? Today, I'd like our panelists to consider this issue with these three questions in mind, and as they answer, to think about these things. First of all, what are our panelists hearing from people in their circles of influence, from their church members and congregants, about information and politics? Are people numb or are they energized? Another question, what might be the long-term consequences for national identity and moral decision-making of this growing feeling of mistrust of the information we receive? Then finally, how should people respond when they want to be responsible citizens but find themselves uncertain and fatigued by it all? That is our subject. Those are our questions for today. Again, we're thankful that you've tuned in. We're going to begin the program in our discussion phase by asking those who started the program to say a little bit more of their thoughts on the subject. For that, we go back to Reverend Plumbley. Glad to have you here. More thoughts on the subject, please.
Thank you. I do believe that we have a real threat to democracy. I know that the process of discernment of facts and the process of motivation to participation, those are a normal part of the challenge of of citizenship in a democracy. But when things have become so polarized, when anger is so much a part of what we feel, when we are addressed by about political issues, whether by candidates or by journalists or by somebody else. I think that malaise is a real threat to democracy. This is a participatory sport. We are supposed to be involved. Democracy assumes the education of and the involvement of large numbers of people in the decision-making process. And without that, we go down the road toward a situation where only the elites rule. And in addition to that, I think this malaise, this numbness, whatever the pollsters want to call it, opens us to the reality of this threat of foreign influence in the election process, because they affect the information that we receive. And if we are not on our game, if we are not really working at trying to discern exactly what the facts are, then we are far more likely to be taken in by the misinformation that is being that is being put out there, and therefore, I think democracy itself is under threat.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Dr. Luxton, you talked about discernment and trying to figure out what is right, what is fact, and what is not. Tell us more of your thoughts on that subject.
Yeah, as I look at the situation, I see more a sense of confusion and maybe people being a bit out of their depth. I remember when I was a young professor and I had a student in my class. He was also the president of the Students' Association. And administration made a decision that he didn't like. And he called for a general student gathering in the middle of the day, so people would have to leave classes. And of course the students all went. And he addressed them and he gave them a very rousing one side of the argument, to the point that they all said, yes, 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 evil administration, you know how students can go. And so I was teaching him English. So I said to him next time I met him, this speech you gave, I mean, we've just talked about writing and the ethics of making sure that what happened there? And he looked at me and he said, it's not my fault if they're stupid enough not to know there's another side.
Oh my.
And we had a long conversation about ethics following that interaction. Mm-hmm. But the point is, I think that we're in a situation now where technology, the capacity to Twitter, Facebook, all of those things makes our power of communication so much greater. And also the power of miscommunication so much greater as a result of that. And when you're receiving it, the challenge is, are we able to unpack that and ask the right questions to say, am I being misinformed? Am I having half the truth? Am I having all the truth? What do I deal with that? And I think, sorry, this sounds much ageist, but I think the older we are, the harder it is for us to get to terms with that, because this has not been the world we've grown up with. And so all of this stuff is coming to us from all angles, and we don't know what is false, what is true, and how do we unpack that? And so the irony is, this is democracy. The fact that we can do this is democracy. But is our capacity to make good decisions at risk because of this? Maybe. I'd like to go one stage further and say, so what do we do? What is our responsibility? I think it has to be to try and teach, educate on the ethics of fairness and communication. Because it is not fair, in my mind, when you intentionally put out there partial information. I don't think that is really the ethical thing to do. So how do we build a moral frame in society that keeps up with this constantly changing environment that allows more communication to happen?
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Robeck, welcome to the program. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think that these election cycles are far too long. Every day I read the LA Times and I read the Pasadena Star News, and I go online and I read BBC News and I read the New York Times and I read the Washington Post, and I'm constantly looking for other news sources. I'll watch PBS and so forth to see if I can get a different perspective. But to be honest with you, to have 2 years or almost 2 years of discussions about who's going to even run in the primaries, let alone the final election, I think it's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. I think technology, social media, and money are the big drivers of everything that we're hearing right now. I dare say that in the old days, before all of these things came into existence, well, money's always been around, but technology and social media, people had to wait for news. People got real news, I think, on the whole. I mean, I've spent thousands of hours in earlier newspapers from across the country for a variety of research purposes, and I'm always amazed at the same news that appears day after day, then as well as today. So I'm not too worried about influence by external sources, but I am very much concerned about people who make decisions on the basis of sound bites or on opinion pieces that I see over and over and over again in newspapers and other media. I just think that people need the freedom not to listen. If I don't watch TV very much, but I will watch CBS News in the evening, or maybe NBC or ABC, I don't know. But, you know, I'll watch that half hour, but then it's cushioned, or I should say it's between two poles where you have ads by people who are running for all kinds of offices on both ends. We are weeks away from an election right now. We are months away from a presidential election or senatorial or congressional election, and yet I'm feeling totally inundated by that. I appreciate the people that go door to door. I appreciate the people who speak for themselves instead of having other people tell us what it is that they have. And I do think that we're tired. I think that the Iowa caucus that took place earlier this year is one of those places where they're very concerned that far fewer people participated in that caucus. I dare say they're worn out. Why don't we just go to a system where we have a month to make our case? A month. That would be plenty. I don't even pay attention to the national one until we have two candidates. Then I will talk about what are the differences and what would I like.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Mathews, glad to have you here today.
Yes,
Your thoughts on the subject?
Reverend Plumbley earlier mentioned that politics is a participatory sport, and he's exactly correct. In addition, it's a full contact sport, and a lot of people just get hurt. In my circles, people are both numb and energized. And you know, when I talk with folks about politics, I tell them, I beg them to do your own research. You know, secondhand information, being affiliated with a particular party because your mother was, or your grandparents were, or your friends are, I think that's just insufficient. I think people, with all the information out there on politics and the different policies that are out there from both parties, I just think it's responsible for citizens to research for themselves. And people may be surprised. A lot of people who are Republicans, when they do the research themselves on certain issues, may very well find out that they are not Republican in that area. They may lean more Democratic, and vice versa. People who are Democrats may just determine in certain areas that they lean more towards Republican policies. So I think the information, the internet, the news, media, and then of course you have people who are just biased in their presentations with the whole political process. And I just think it's healthy for people to do their own research, and that's could be a problem because most people won't do it.
All right, thank you very much. And then Rabbi Levin, glad to have you here today to the program. Your thoughts on the subject, please.
So when I think about the people that I speak to in my congregation and in my circles, I think the word that describes them really is anguished. Because I think they see that so much that happens in the political sphere is trespassing on things they hold to be sacred. And some of those things are truth. In Jewish tradition, one of the names for God is Emet, which means truth. And this idea of the truth as being something that can be cast aside callously and with wanton regard is in many ways a spiritual trespass. I think there's also a sense that our political leaders are not living in service to the higher purposes that we wish they would be. That their purpose now seems to be about supporting their tribe or their partisan calling as opposed to the nation they've been asked to serve. Our Constitution says in the preamble, the purpose of our government is to support the general welfare, not the democratic welfare or the Republican welfare, not the conservative welfare or the liberal welfare, the general welfare. And I think we've lost a bit of that. And I think that because of technology, we are able to push people further into their bubbles and their corners. I'm not sure, Dr. Robeck, that the technology is to blame, because I think that technology is the tool that people who are trying to gain partisan advantage at all costs are trying to avail themselves. It's not just foreign influence. Plenty of domestic political operations are using bots and other kinds of sophisticated technologies to misinform and to create disinformation in the public. And these are the tools, frankly, that authoritarian regimes use to create their own centers of political power by causing distrust in the entire democratic process. And I think if we continue to walk down this road, we will lose our democracy.
Okay, thank you very much. And now, Canon Peterson, welcome to the program. Your thoughts, please.
Yes. When you stop to think of the time in which Richard Nixon was in trial for impeachment, at that time, there were 3 television networks. Our communication was limited to 3 television networks, NBC, ABC, CBS, and that was it. And when you look at social media today, you have every gamut possible, plus interference. And I suspect that we simply have not been able to keep up with the social media and to be able to be clear enough in our own minds and understanding of what is really happening. I think we are being blindsided in many ways. I also want to say 2 other things. Number one, I do believe that there is a loss of civility in this country, a real loss of civility. And also, we are building silos. We who are Republicans are in one silo. We who support one program are in a silo. We're really siloed. And there's no communication between the silos. And so we have this whole problem of civility. If you are a Republican, then you're going to criticize Nancy Pelosi. If you are a Democrat, you're going to criticize the president. I mean, the silos are so well defined today. And so there's media distrust, but there's certainly also political distrust. And I agree with those of you around the table who spoke about, we're just so highly politicized that we are living in a silo that if we aren't careful, we're going to lose our democracy.
All right, thank you. We just have a few seconds left, and Reverend Plumbley, you motioned and signaled you wanted to say more.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the problems with the malaise, the numbness that people feel, the desire to get away from the conversation, any conversation, siloed or otherwise, is that what we end up with is we only respond to that which entertains, and then our democracy turns on who's the best entertainer, who makes the best jokes, who is the best orator, perhaps. who can hold our attention for that 10 seconds that we are willing to give attention in a way that makes us remember his or her name. And that is a problem when we cannot get beyond entertainment to really discuss issues.
All right, that'll have to be the last word for this segment. So far, you've stood by through this, and I hope you've appreciated everyone's opinion and point of view. They're not quite finished yet, though. There's going to be a summation in just a few moments. Before that, I'd like for you to stand by for this important message.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome back. We're so glad that you've been with us for today's program. We hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. I do encourage you, as Mark has, to go to the internet to see some of the past programs that are archived there for you. And by all means, learn more about the Town Hall Estates. I think you will be very pleased to hear about this wonderful organization. Now we're going to go to our summation statements. Let's begin with John Peterson. You're first, Canon Peterson.
Thank you. I would want to emphasize the need to try to break out of silos. They are destructive to being able to have a broader view and picture of what is happening politically, socially, and economically as well. And it seems to me that so many people today are just simply muting television when a particular person is on. And then when the person of their choice comes on, the mute goes off. And we are in a time of, indeed, of tremendous media distrust as well as political distrust. And this cannot be helpful. And I certainly agree with Mel, our whole political process, gearing up 2 years ahead of time, only can cause fatigue. And I think we are seeing that, but the main problem, I would argue, is simply civility.
All right, thank you, Reverend Plumbley. Your summation, please.
Thank you. I really agree with that idea that we should opt for a shorter election cycle, campaigning cycle, and a lot of these primaries can just go away as far as I'm concerned. That doesn't solve the problem of the individual citizen being a good citizen when it comes to the electoral process. When we stop trying to know, we've given up our birthright as citizens in a democracy.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Robeck.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with a lot of that. Rabbi Levin responded to my comment on technology. I didn't mean to say that technology is the enemy, but technology is the means by which we are being overloaded with a lot of things. And I am very concerned about, I mean, how many Democratic debates do we have to listen to in order to make up our mind about particular candidates? And the other question, I mean, for me, one of the questions, I'm not a fan of Sanders, but I have to say one of the most significant questions he's raised for me is, can a billionaire understand the people of the United States? I don't think so. I don't care who the billionaire is, and there are 3 or 4 of them that are running. I just can't see how that's going to be helpful to us. Do we need political parties? Maybe we don't. You know, I mean, I vote across lines all the time. I may be registered in one party, but I'll bet you I vote 50%, if not more, for the opposite party or for independent situations than I do for the party that I'm technically registered for. So I don't know how well they help us anymore.
All right, thank you. And then Rabbi Levin, your summation, please.
I was taught that in a democracy, you get the government you deserve.
Yeah.
And I think that we live in a market-driven media environment. And if we decide as a society that we will only purchase media from those who tell us the truth, and if we will only purchase our subscriptions to publications and to online settings that will tell us the real verified truth, we might find that we live in a very different environment. We need to decide as Americans that we want to come together. We need to decide as people of faith that we will reach across our own boundaries and get out of our silos, and then we'll see a different media landscape that will reflect it.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Luxton. Your summation, please.
Yeah, I really resonate with the last comment, and I would add to that that I think a lot of the challenges we have and a lot of the discouragement we're seeing is that there seems to be just a lack of respect for one person for another. We don't respect each other enough to be civil to each other. We don't respect each other enough to be willing to share the truth. We don't respect each other enough to be willing to hear another perspective if it's not ours. And that, to me, is something that we should be standing for.
All right, thank you. Now, Dr. Mathews.
Yeah, I like what Dr. Luxton has mentioned. I'm more optimistic with our democracy. I don't think it's under threat. I think a strong democracy reflects diversity of thought. And I just wish we would have more respect for those who think differently from others. I also think that we're going to see decisions being made along party lines, but then that's what the purpose of parties are for. You know, if they support your beliefs and your agenda, you vote for them. I just wish and pray and hope that people will vote and be an informed voter rather than getting it from second-hand and third-hand parties.
All right, thank you very much, and for everyone's participation today. It's been an interesting discussion. We hope you've enjoyed it at home as you've tuned in. And I will encourage you to go to the website. You can view past programs similar to this one. But for now, the Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And so now, friends, until next time, at the same time and over this very same channel, or however you've tuned in today, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.